Hello and welcome to the show. Now, you guys wanted to see me take one of my automation creations around the Endurodrome. So that is what we are going to start today's Driven Till Destruction with. To be fair, this is kind of a non-official run, shall we say, because the damage on these cars is a little bit limited at the moment. Things like radiator, for example, can't get punctured. We won't see this car go out through overheating, and damage is a little bit more simplistic perhaps on these cars than we have seen on your normal Beam cars. However, it can still fail. The most likely ways we are to see this car go out will be wheels, whether it be a loss of a wheel, whether it be a broken steering. They are that's the most likely way. The main engine can get damaged in its entirety. It tends to be from very heavy hits. However, I don't really know what it's going to do around a circuit like this. Kind of the repeated battering. I'm also curious to see how the suspension holds up to what is going to be a nasty time. I mean, this car here, I have deliberately picked about my weakest vehicle that I've built. In fact, this thing was built specifically to showcase the differences between the very strong cars and a car made of fiberglass and designed to be quite unsafe. So, yeah, it is a weaker car. I have no doubt you could build vehicles nigh on indestructible in automation to take around here because of the slightly limited damage. But we're going to find out. We're going to find out how long this can survive. As I said, you never really know when it comes to these sort of series. When it comes to certainly to the Endurodrome, you never really know quite what's going to go on with the cars, when things might go a little bit weird, when things might go a little bit awry. Oh god, we're across the rocks for the first time, and it's it's the first roll of the car. We lost a wing mirror. Oh no, not a wing mirror. Are we good? We're not terribly, considering we just did a front flip, not actually too badly broken in all of that. God, this car suspension is probably a little stiff for what we're doing here. Designed, well, as a sports car, designed to be a sporty vehicle, that stiff suspension doesn't half bounce the car around. We've seen that a little bit with normal Beam cars, the Sunburst that we had, the Sports Sunburst that went around here, that had all sorts of issues with bouncing in a fairly similar manner to this. We are upside down and over. Look, this car's heavy compared to the I say a car's heavy. Did not want to roll over very, very easily. My steering does not look all too happy. Oh no, okay, never mind. That's just the angle we were looking at it. I was not convinced that front right was in a happy place. However, it now seems it doesn't look as bad. Yeah, I'm just going to go with the angle. We need to be able to get, and this car here is more than fast enough to be able to get around the 60-mile-an-hour mark to get the jump nicely, which we have done, although we've bounced on the landing. We're going to skid along on our roof, although this is kind of good news for the little car. This is kind of good news for the little car. Also, I don't think we can, I don't think we get the oil starvation on these cars. I don't think that's a thing that happens. So, that's not going to be affecting our vehicles. Okay, we're across the speed. I think in some ways the speed bumps are what I fear the most potentially with this. Certainly as it gets a little bit broken, the speed bumps potentially tearing off a wheel. When you have got such low suspension, when you've got such stiff suspension, the wheels are the big concern here. We're going to be jumping across there relatively nicely, and there we are, we're across, and that's the main way we're likely to see this car go out. So yeah, speed bumps tearing a wheel off is kind of possible, I guess. We'll see how it goes. How is our suspension holding up across these? Actually, it seems to be, it bounces it around very uncomfortably. However, the suspension is holding for now. I don't know whether we will see it collapse as we go. Let's try and slow it down through that section. Christ, that gets launched so far off the first of those. Well, I say it's the first of the large speed bumps, the third speed bump in that line, that we don't actually hit the fourth one. I mean, that's one way to do it, although it does also mean you are hitting the first one very, very hard. So, kind of good, kind of not so good. I think for now, when we're in this condition, that is a relatively nice condition of car, we're alright. Again, as I said, when it gets more poorly, or when we go sliding into the mud pit, There's very little rear end grip in this car to begin with, and then you add on the fact that the rear end isn't really spending much time on the ground, and that's not really what you want from a car. It makes it quite difficult. It does make it quite difficult indeed. Now, can we get across? Oh, we got across with less airtime. However, glancing blow on a rock did turn us around. I mean, it's a slightly misshapen little car. Have we done some weird things to the rear left, perhaps? I'm not sure if the rear left... Oh, okay, that might have hurt the rear left. It certainly sounded like it hurt something. Just slightly. Now, it might just be because the body has been kind of bent down a bit. But the rear left... I'm not sure if that suspension is still up. It might just be the body. Yeah, I think it's the way the body sat on the car. Never mind. It was kind of clipping through. I wondered if we had managed to collapse some suspension. I don't think so. Although we now... yeah, so we've got a weird sort of toe angle going from one of the rear wheels. Yeah, I thought there was a bit of a nasty hit on a rock. That's going to make this car alarmingly difficult to drive. Whoa, that's a vicious roll. We've lost steering. We have lost one of the front wheels. That is not going to steer. Now, is it going to behave itself? Am I going to be able to drive the car minus a front wheel? Now, we've seen some vehicles be able to work if we can potentially still... You know, if we can keep going for now, if that wheel bends itself, pings itself in an awkward direction, it might be very difficult to pull the car around, depending on the level of damage. Now, the rule is if I have to grab reverse to make a corner, that will be game over. And I think that steering... I haven't had to grab reverse. I've just rolled it down a hill. Okay, that works. Technically not cheating. The best kind of not cheating. However, that wheel is at such an angle that means that I'm really having to fight the car here. We might get it down. I mean, at the end of the day, this will fail at a technical section. It so happens that it's gone at a fairly wide open part of the course. Here we go. Little car, fly! Fly as well as you can. As well as you can. I'm amazed we've actually still got any sort of control in the vehicle. It's still going, although we are now bobbling up towards... Ooh, that's a nasty hit on the front. We've still got steering on that front left, which is kind of what we need. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to get through this next section, because we've got to try and get the car across before we go to the wall, and I can't get... There's no turning. Come on. Come on. You can make it. Into the petrol station we go. Here we are now. Oh, it's limping. And I think that's kind of me done, really. I think that is kind of me done, to be fair. That steering is very bad. When the wheels have gone in these cars, the steering is very, very bad indeed. When the wheels are done, it just drags the car across. Yeah, I mean, even with some cheating reshuffling, with with kart, I think we're actually going to beach it on the... Yeah. I think he's going to get stuck on the speed bump. I'm going to count that as out. I mean, we even had to use a little bit of downhill going from the car to get it. It was the steering. In the end, the suspension succumbed to the bumps. It was a vicious rollover we did down that back straight. Very vicious rollover we did down the back straight with the car. And in one of those hits, it was enough to snap the front wheel. We kept going for a little while. Something I have seen with the automation cars is if one of the wheels goes, unlike with some of the Beam cars, if one of the wheels goes, you can kind of make do with it. If one of the wheels goes on these, you really have a lot of trouble steering. I'm kind of surprised I made it as far as I did, to be honest. There we go. Our little sports car, that is out. Up next, we move from a little lightweight sports car to a rather large heavy muscle car. This is the Dodge Coronet Super B. It's just come out on the Beam forums. A really rather fantastic looking car, and it is, I mean, that's ginormous. A ridiculously large vehicle, especially when the last thing we drove was my little automation creation. Let's go and see what this does around here. Now, these big classic American boats have had some very funny failures so far. I mean, the Regency will still perhaps be the most spectacular vehicle we have ever seen go around here, with the rear axle wobbling and bouncing around. This, don't really know. I mean, we have got softer suspension, which is pretty good. I say that. That front left looks suspiciously not healthy. Is that front left completely given up? Oh, I think the speed bump might have taken out the front left suspension. That's not what we want to see. Okay, well, I mean, the other 4 bits of suspension, if they don't get clobbered by a speed bump, you know, they might be better for dealing with the rest of the circuit. Like, we might not see this bounce over in the same way that we saw the Sunburst, or the same way we saw the little sports car do. This should have a little bit more give in its suspension. Just don't hit. I just got to be very careful through here. This could be quite problematic for the Coronet if that suspension is down with the rocks. Of course, further speed bumps are now going to be... Oh, okay, this car's... Yeah. This car's now different when you go to pull it around with the no grabber. Yeah, I think cars interact slightly differently with the no grabbers between the automation cars and the beam vehicles. Can we jump over there nicely? I'm really now worried about landing on that front left. Oh, we've got issues. We've got issues. Both of the front suspensions are collapsed. That's not what we want to see. We are now basically dragging the underside of our car along the road. Oh dear. Dodge! Dodge. If you would... I mean, I think we're going to take out something important. Oh, actually, I've lost steering as well. One of the wheels is gone. The same wheel, actually, as we lost in the, the automation car has gone in the Coronet. Well, I say it's gone. It's not gone off. It's a tie rod that's snapped. So that doesn't work. So not only do we have the front of the car basically smashing itself along the floor, we now really struggle with steering. I mean, it is better for steering. Like, we do have some left and then some right, but it's not even wobbling around, which is helpful. Also, we've got more power in this to spin the back of the car about. Oh, this could be pain for the front of the Coronet. Here we go. Come on, Dodge. You can make it. Ow. Okay. You can't really make that very well there. Oh, are you completely beached? Have you got the chassis buckled in such a way that I can't even drive you? I think it is, you know. I think that is a stuck car. Oh, no, we've got some life into it, just. But it was stuck on something. Oh, no, there's speed bumps coming up here. I think we might have trouble. Not only have we lost a wheel, we might have real trouble just clearing the speed bumps. Go! Oh, Christ. I mean, we kind of made it. Now, the general rules are that I can pull the car across. I fear if I pull this across here, which we are allowed to do if it gets beached, I don't even think you can get across the next one. Can we even drag it backwards over here? I think that might be... I haven't seen one of these for a while, but I think that's going to be a failure on a bent chassis. Now, yeah, the general rules are if I get it sort of stuck on a rock through poor driving and whatnot, or if it rolls on a landing of a jump and pings into the scenery, I am allowed to pull the car clear. However, it has got to be able to complete the obstacles. You know, if I spin past one of the slalom sections, I've got to be able to actually get through the slalom section. And I don't think this can physically clear a speed bump. In fact, it's can't even drive forward anymore. It's gone. Oh, are we going to get some... No, it's completely gone. The combination of the steering's not letting it, and the fact that the front suspension's completely destroyed, and now the chassis won't let it get over a speed bump. But all of that together, and the Coronet is done. It is number... Well, I mean, it keeps up with the spectacular and highly entertaining ways of classic American cars failing around this course, at least. So, having slightly destroyed a lovely classic American muscle car, it only seems right that our next contender for a drive around the Endurodrome should be a pretend Toyota Supra. This is the Pursue mod. I've gone with the tuner version of the car because I've not really used it before, so why not give it a try? It is very low, very stiff suspension, a lot of power through the rear wheels. Surely nothing can go wrong when it comes to driving around here. Apparently also very weak bumpers. That's both the rear and the front gone. Great start. Now, of course, they are purely cosmetic stuff. However, I say that, sometimes the front bumper can be very helpful at mitigating damage to a radiator, at least for a little while. It will take the first couple of big hits before, pinging off, and then the radiator tends to get exposed. However, well, the radiator on this is immediately exposed. This likes the bumps about as little as my sports car did. Yeah, the sports suspension has a tough time around here. Now that is half of the fun. The suspension will get utterly destroyed. In fact, I'm not even sure that rear left is quite pointing in the way that it should be. It might have got some sort of toe-in going on at the back there. It's not great to drive, and it doesn't help when the back's being bounced around so much, and when there's so much power. I've got to be very careful with my old throttle control here, as we're going to plough our way through the mud pit. We should have more than enough power and momentum to get through there. Okay, across the rockery for the first time. Can we find a nice, smoothish way there? I think we got the radiator pinged in all of that. Perhaps not so surprised with this car. The front's very low and likely to end up in the rocks and whatnot. I mean, with the radiator gone, you know, we're a ticking time bomb. But this car will overheat within 3 or 4 laps, probably, depending on the size of the leak on the radiator. Considering how easily the radiator went, I'm suspecting we'll probably hit the floor, damage the radiator worse, and the coolant will dribble out very quickly in this. My bigger concern, though, in this car is the wheels. I mean, we are being utterly battered across these jumps. We are being absolutely battered across these jumps so far. I'll be honest, I'm going to be surprised if this makes it to overheating with the current way that it's handling the bumps. Something's going to hit, and something's going to hit hard, and something's going to snap. And I'm not sure which wheel is going to give way first, whether it's going to be front, whether we're going to lose steering again, or whether we're going to maybe even potentially lose a rear wheel, or just collapse suspension will cause issues. We should be fast enough, though, to make this jump without too many problems. A nice landing, actually, from the Supra. If it would stop wheeling, that was the ambulance's trait. Supra, you can't take that away from the ambulance. That was the ambulance's special ability. Oh, slow it down for the chicane. Now, we have still got okay steering. It's not the greatest handling car. Doesn't go in a straight line if you leave the steering alone. However, it's not the worst we've dealt with today, so clobber our way across the curbs. We'll make it further than the Coronet, and we will make it onto a second lap, at least, with the car. I just got to be a little bit careful with the debris hanging around. That didn't sound good. Oh, that's really not good. I've just seen the damage. It's all gone down so far today on that same corner. The front right of cars is apparently of 3 very different cars. Hell, one I built is apparently weak. It's not fallen off, it's just very badly bent in. Now that, again, it's just taking more and more control away from me. So trying to position this car perfectly for jumps, trying to line up and trying to get, you know, a decent run up, or just gonna spin around like a muppet. Trying to get a decent run up for the important jumps. Now we've got to be going 60-ish miles an hour, I think about 62, 65 miles an hour, somewhere in that kind of window, if we're going to make the jump. And when you're trying to drive that with a car that's not very compliant with anything, that's when you're going to end up having a twisted takeoff, and when you're potentially going to have a very, very big roll. Hell, this thing can roll on some of the small jumps, so that big jump is going to be a little bit scary. Oh, there goes the other side skirt. We're all landing on that side at the moment. Rear suspension doesn't look happy either. In fact, rear wheel now does not look happy, particularly. Can we continue to jump far enough? Ooh, when that nose gets tipped down and it's kind of barreling towards some rocks, that's a scary prospect for puncturing engines. I don't think we've seen... Well, we kind of saw with the Regency, that was on a speed bump, actually. That, I mean, admittedly, that suspension was done mad things. That had the engine get taken out because it hit a speed bump. And I guess we kind of saw a little bit with the Coronet. Collapsed front suspension led to the front end, the actual chassis on that car, so low that it couldn't physically clear a speed bump. Now, I don't think we're going to see that with the Pursue, but it's whether the engine is hanging down low enough, or drive shaft. That's a big concern potential right there with the old drive shaft. I might be going a little bit slow. No, we got away with that. Although, the exhaust is coming off. That doesn't feel good on the old steering side of things. Still, we carry on. Oh, that's not that. You know what I was just talking about. Crap, we lost both rear tyres in that as well. Just what I was talking about with the speed bumps. Admittedly, that was actually a peculiar... That's a drive shaft failure and both rear tyres gone. That is the end of the Supra. That's kind of a peculiar one in parking brake. Doesn't work anymore. It's kind of a peculiar one in that it was sort of launched initially and came back down. I guess we came back down just at the right point to land the drive shaft squarely on the speed bump. And with an already pretty low and quite battered car, the drive shaft landing on the speed bump with some force, that'll snap it, along with puncturing both of the rear tyres. That's the end of the Pursuit. It is no more. On to our leaderboard, and it was my very own creation that goes the furthest today, but it is only just. It does only just manage a top 10 as well. The very yellow goes into 10th place. A fraction behind. The I-Series drive shaft actually got conked out, I think, at the speed bumps. That actually rolled down the hill and rolled through the petrol station, whereas, well, the sports car got kind of wedged with its knackered steering. The Pursuit goes into 11th place with that drive shaft failure on the same speed bumps. That ended up rolling over and then therefore couldn't roll and had knackered steering as well. So, yeah, I mean, kind of not so surprised at that car having those sort of issues very low, that stiff suspension. Both of them pinged around like mad. The Dodge Coronet was perhaps a little bit more of a surprise. It is down in 17th place. It isn't quite last, it does go further than the bus, but it is a fair way down the order with that wheel and quite epic chassis failure. The distance indicator was kind of kind to the Coronet in many ways. It measures wheel rotations rather than actual distance, and the Coronet spends a lot of time spinning its wheels because it kind of got stuck for a while. So, yeah, never read too much into the actual distance. But there we go. That is going to be it for this video. As ever, I shall link all the mods used in the description so you can download them, have a go with them yourself. However, until next time, a goodbye.